Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
Okay, I'm back in Cali, and this is after the event, and I want to share one of the stories, or just he was kind of sharing his entire life story of what he's been through and how he's got to where he is right now. So one of the guys who was up there, he was talking about, "Yeah, I'm from Mesa, Arizona, and growing up as a Polynesian, there's really like three main parts of your life. Number one is family, and then there's church, religion, and then football. Because everyone in the culture, we all play football or rugby. Those are the main sports. And when he was growing up, the sport that he really pursued was football. So he got into BYU on a football scholarship. He was able to go out there, and then out of college, he started working in finance. And then after he was working a couple years, he decided to pivot and make a pivot in his career and then pursue investment banking. And the way he was going to do that and make a pivot is really, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people go into business school in the first place is to make a pivot in their career. So he decided to apply to all the business schools, Wharton and Kellogg and Stanford, Harvard, all the business schools. And then he decided to go to Kellogg. The only issue about going to Kellogg was that he had to take on, and that was something that he was weighing out in his mind because undergrad, he didn't have to worry about it. He plays football paid for his scholarship, and that's how he got to school. But now for grad school, he has to try to come up with the money for it. And business school is not cheap. And he has some savings from his job that he worked out of college, but not nearly the amount he needed to actually go to school. So he decided to go into debt, about 150,000, go to school for 2 years, after the 2 years, to leave, and then go into investment banking. That's what he did. He went to Kellogg. It's everything. He said it's everything they said it would be. Like all the big banks recruited from there, all the networking opportunities, all the people we got to know. Kellogg was an amazing place for him to go to. So finally, he goes to Kellogg, he graduates, he's in debt, and then the next part of his life is like, how am I going to pay off this debt? I'm 150K in the hole. I got to go out and work. So he gets a job in banking. And he said he gets paid like 10 times more than he was. He's eventually able to pay that off. And boom, that was one of his stories that really showed how debt is not always a bad thing. And whenever we think about debt, it always has a bad connotation, negative connotation. We think about it, oh, if you're not debt, it's really, really bad. Or if someone has debt, stay away from it. But there's examples and there are cases where debt can actually be used in your favor. And that's what this talk was about. That's what he did by going to Kellogg, by going to business school, educating himself, and then scoring a high paying job. And then one of the key takeaways I had was when he said, the greatest asset you have is not your money, it's not your liquid cash, it's not your real estate portfolio, the stocks that you own. It's not any of that. The greatest asset that you have is yourself, is your knowledge, the things that you know. And by taking out debt for school, he used that money to reinvest it into himself. And then through that, he started working investment banking, Merrill Lynch. So here he is. He's pretty much got things figured out. Kellogg grad, investment banking job. He's living the econ bro life. And then all of a sudden, he said, yeah, he got a call from one of his Harvard business friends. And the friend was talking about another guy who was looking for a finance guy who would start up a company with him. And it was a defense company for the government. It was like a government contracting company, something like that. I might be misinterpreting the details, but the details don't really. What matters is that he had a decision to make. He would either stay where he was at, be comfortable, or he would take another risk, move out to Philadelphia, and start building this company. And by then, he already paid off his student loans. He was chilling. But if he goes out Philly and if he tries to build this company, then he's gonna have to go into debt. So he decides, you know what? I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna place the bet on myself, go out and start building. That's what he did. He went out, started building. First year passes by, and he was in the hole, making no money. Next year passes by, still making no money. Next year passes by. There's nothing. Next year passes by. 4 years pass by. He's living in Philadelphia, and he is not seeing the fruits of his labor. He is not seeing why he went out there in the first place. And then finally, year 5 comes around, and he starts seeing results. He's like, okay, things are going well now. It was worth it. The bet that he placed on himself and paid off. So he's still there, they're grinding, they're working, they're building. And then a couple years down the road, a private equity company comes along and they want to buy him out. And I vividly remember the story that he told. This is what hit me the most. Out of the entire conference, out of the entire event, this story is what stuck with me the most. And he was saying it was him, his wife, and his mom. And they were out eating at a sushi restaurant. It was just another day. They were eating. As he's eating, an email pops up or a notification. When he opens the notification, he saw something there. Then he just started to break down and cry. Looked at his mom, looked at his wife, and the other started crying. And the happiest moments of his life was always him. What was on the notification was the money that he made from selling his company. He said he'd never seen so many commas and zeros in his life. The thing that he was thinking about was how this Italian kid from Mesa, Arizona somehow made it. That was the moment where he was like, it was all worth it, where he finally cashed in all his chips on himself, the bets that he placed, and he saw the results of it. And that's what hit me really hard. When he was talking about how his mom was there because his parents sacrificed so much to be there, immigrating to America from the islands where there was nothing, and they built a life over here where he was able to thrive and go to college, get a scholarship, go through business, pursue what he wanted to do. And then it all culminated to this day where he got that notification. He saw the money that he got. He was like, man, mom, thank you for everything you've done. Because of what you've done, this is what I've accomplished. Because the money is great. The money's awesome. He was able to make millions and millions of dollars. But the thing that mattered more to him and what really hit me too was that he was able to show his mom that it was worth it. The sacrifices she made were worth it. That's why that story was so powerful to me. And so after that happened for this guy, he retired in his 30s and then he came out of retirement and he's building an empire in real estate called Wolfgram Capital. I think that's where the most powerful Tongans are going to be all together in one room. And eventually I want to be working with those fools. And then there was a story of another guy. That story was really cool too. It was an amazing story, but I think this one just hit me. It hit home harder. So I'll tell his story in the next episode. I think the lesson to take away from that was the whole talk he gave was about how you should use debt. Don't be afraid of it, but use it to your advantage. And not only that, but invest in yourself because your education is the greatest asset that you have. With my life update, not really much of an update. I haven't been able to really get much work done just because I've been traveling Salt Lake and Vegas. But now that I'm here, I'm finally going to be able to put in some time, some dedicated, deep work to push the big things forward. I think right now there's two things, two skills that I want to get good at in terms of marketing, which is Google Ads and then web design. So I think those two things are the two skills I'm going to be working on right now. The one that's most important for sure is getting good with ads. Because I overheard my dad was calling one of the local, I guess they're like an independent living business. I don't fully understand it, but from what I do understand, basically they own a home, they have beds over there, and then they bring in people from, or they're able to live on their own where they can do daily things, but they need a little bit of help. Because my dad, he does assisted living where they need hands-on care from nurses who give them medications and do all that stuff. But a level below that is independent living. So he was calling it independent living business nearby. And he was pitching to them the whole placement agency model, which is kind of the idea that we're thinking of, that we're working with, which is I'll generate leads through Google Ads, through website, then send those leads to my dad. From there, my dad will take those leads. He'll see what they need, the level of care, and then he'll start placing them at other facilities. So, for example, if someone calls them up and their loved one has Alzheimer's and they need a lot of care, we'll say, okay, you can come over here with me, my assisted living facility. I'll place them over there. But if they call them up and they're like, I don't know, 50 years old, no, 50 is a little young. They're like, let's say 60 years old. They need a little bit of help, but they can still function fine on their own. And that's what he placed them at an independent living facility. That's the basic idea, the model of a placement agency, from what I understand. I still don't understand everything. All I know is that I got to generate the leads. I got to make the phone ring. If I can do that, my work is accomplished. I'll be cheering. Oh, yeah. And the way it works in terms of payment is that we would get however much the first month rent costs. So say, for example, it costs I don't know, $1,000 a month for someone to live at the independent living facility, and we would get paid $1,000 for placing them there. That business keeps, and then down the road when they're able to live in the assisted living facility, when they go, and that's when they assisted living. That was a lot of technical words I use in there. Don't worry if you don't know what that means. Like you can tell that I don't really know. I'm not an expert in this. I think if I was an expert, then I'll be able to explain it better, exactly how everything works. Well, that's why I'm out here trying to learn. But yeah, goal for me is to generate leads, generate qualified leads. And yeah, I'll share the other powerful story in the next episode. It was a great story. But yeah, that's everything.